As partners and allies, Canada and Poland are working together to train members of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Canadian Armed Forces members are in Poland right now, training them through Operation Unifier, Canada's training mission that, since 2015, has trained over 36,000 Ukrainians. Poland is also where CAF members have been training Ukrainians to a training program for Armed Forces of Ukraine personnel. And just last week, we deployed more CAF trainers as part of a new round of military support to Ukraine. Poland and Canada are both also strong allies in NATO. In fact, Poland is a significant contributor to the Canada-led NATO battle group in Latvia, contributing over 170 troops to the mission. Depuis le début de l'invasion, le Canada s'est engagé à fournir plus d'1 milliard de dollars en matériel militaire à l'Ukraine, ce qui comprend des chars de combat Leopard 2, un système national de missiles surface-air perfectionné, des véhicules blindés, des armes anti-chars, des armes légères, des obusiers M777, des munitions et bien plus. This is part of the more than $8 billion in aid Canada has provided to Ukraine, including economic support. Across Europe, we're seeing economic shifts in reaction to Putin's brutalities, including his weaponization of energy. Energy security is an urgent issue for Poland and countries across Europe. Like-minded countries around the world are working to build stable relationships with partners who have values that align so we can build resilient supply chains. This is about energy security, yes, but it's also about economic opportunities in the economy of the future, a net-zero economy. Canada is ready to be the supplier of energy that a net-zero world will need. Les entreprises canadiennes investissent déjà dans les énergies renouvelables en Pologne. L'entreprise canadienne Northland Power a conclu un partenariat avec l'entreprise polonaise Orlen pour construire un parc éolien d'une capacité de 1,2 gigawatts dans la mer Baltique. On renforce aussi le commerce déjà solide entre nos pays. Depuis que notre gouvernement a lancé l'ASCG, le commerce entre la Pologne et le Canada a augmenté de 53% pour atteindre près de 4 milliards de dollars par an. Le travail qu'on fait ensemble va permettre de créer des bons emplois et de bâtir un avenir plus sécuritaire et plus prospère pour nos deux pays. I'm grateful to have been able to meet today and grateful to have such a strong security and trade partner in Eastern Europe. We're both steadfast friends and supporters of Ukraine. I know you met with President Zelensky just yesterday. And together, we are committed to coordinating and sustaining support for Ukraine around the world. En tant que démocratie, la Pologne et le Canada entretiennent des liens étroits qui unissent leurs économies et leurs populations. Et la rencontre d'aujourd'hui nous a permis de resserrer ces liens importants. Merci. It's now my pleasure to turn it over to you, Mateusz.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Justin, for receiving me and for our exemplary cooperation. And I would like to thank to all our Canadian friends sincerely for this, because the alliance around all the critical challenges of the nowadays is absolutely key to fighting with those challenges successfully. And I know, and many of my European friends from all over the European Union know it very well, that we can count on Canada, Canada can count on us. And in particular, this alliance, this friendship is now being tested in the context of the brutal Russian invasion in Ukraine. Over the past year and a half, the world has become sharply polarized, and Russia has contributed to this enormously. And in that context, it's worth emphasizing that transatlantic cooperation has assumed the importance it has had during the Cold War. Poland and Poles and my government, we are deeply involved in supporting Ukraine. First on the military front, in terms of military equipment and organizing weapon delivery through our major hub in Rzeszów, southeastern part of Poland. We started the Leopard Tanks Coalition, and yesterday in Chisinau, Moldova, I spoke to several prime ministers from the European Union and President Volodymyr Zelensky about training pilots for F-16 fighter jets in order for the Ukrainian troops to be able to fend off Russian aggression, to defend from Russian attacks. And we are also deeply involved in support for refugees. We have given access to all our education system, healthcare system, social security system, labor permission system on exactly the same level, exactly the same footing as Polish citizens. And there are still more than 2 million Ukrainian people in Poland, and we want them to feel as good as possible, as well as possible in Poland. We are also organizing sanctions, and right now we talk even more about not allowing Russia to bypass sanctions, to circumvent sanctions. This is also a critical challenge of the nowadays. And in that context, I would like to thank you, Justin, so much for the point which you raised and your people during our meetings of our delegations about how important it is to confiscate Russian assets, in particular assets of the Russian Central Bank, assets of the Russian Federation, because this empire of evil, this brutal invasion, has to bear consequences for their aggression. Poland is, and my government supports this very much, and we go through legislative procedure right now in our parliament to seize some of the Russian assets and to deploy them for reconstruction of Ukraine and reducing of energy prices, because Russia is responsible for this inflation around us and for high energy prices as well. Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, the entire security and economy architecture is now being reconstructed, reshuffled around us. Probably the new geopolitical order is going to emerge out of those ashes of the war in Ukraine. And Poland plays a pivotal role in this resistance towards Russia, which, as I said, is the empire of evil. And our efforts, and in particular brave Ukrainian efforts, are going to be more effective once the cooperation and coordination of our actions is stronger and stronger. And this is why I'm here, and why I'm so grateful, Justin, for our talks, for our very concrete steps in different areas: energy, weapon delivery, humanitarian aid, trade cooperation between the European Union and Canada. It's very important. The current geopolitical situation means not only military but also technological cooperation for Western countries. Democratic countries must maintain a technological edge over non-democratic regimes. Only this way can we secure world peace. World War II was a war of steel. The Cold War was the war of the atom. And if another war breaks out, it will be a war of technology. This is why it's so important for transatlantic community to work together hand in hand in development of those technologies, but also being cautious in spreading those technologies, those know-how around us, because some tyrants, some autocrats can capture those and can use them to the detriment of their own societies and for other bad reasons. This is also why I'm so grateful for our friends here in this region, in Ontario, province Ontario, in particular for our very close cooperation in the energy sector. Nuclear energy projects jointly developed. I've been this morning to one of the plants where, as I was told by the leadership of the company, this is the place where the first modular reactor, small modular reactor on Earth is going to be established over the next couple of years. First investment starts 2025 and 2028. First small modular reactor is going to be done. And our company, Orlen Synthos Green Energy, cooperates very closely with Canadian company in developing those small modular reactors. And also their cooperation is extended to renewables. We cooperate very closely in offshore wind farm technologies, and this is also very, very important. We want to enter SMR technology not only as a user, but also in terms of supply chain and know-how, and hence my visit here in Canada and talks with our Canadian partners are very, very promising, I can tell you. I know that there is wildfire in Canada in so many places, so all what I can say is that my condolences for all who lost their health or lives, God forbid. But if Polish firemen could be of any help, we are very active in similar situations across Europe. I don't know if they could be of any help, but if yes, then they are available, Justin, for you and for our Canadian citizens. So once more, thank you for our close cooperation on so many different fields. It's critically important to strengthen this alliance. We also spoke about critical minerals, rare minerals. Canada is rich of those minerals. I'm going to raise this point on the next European Council meeting because we quite often mention about this topic in the context of China. So it's important to look at this picture from the point of view of transatlantic relations community, and all what is strengthening those is critically important for restoring peace, stability, and prosperity around the globe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. We'll now start the Q&A. 2 questions from the Canadian delegation and 2 questions from the Poland delegation, starting with Canada.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. Colin D'Mello from Global News. On Stellantis, the federal government and Ontario seem to be increasing its offer to Stellantis. Have you actually presented the deal to the company, and does Ontario need to put more money on the table, or are you satisfied with 1/3 of the costs?
Over the past number of years, Canada has secured tremendous investments by global companies to create great jobs across our country, whether you're talking about Michelin and Bridgewater, whether you're talking about Abcellera in BC, whether you're talking about Rio Tinto or other investments across Quebec, or investments in the auto sector, in batteries, in EVs that we've seen over the past number of years, where we've worked very, very closely with the government of Ontario on. We have secured billions of dollars worth of great middle-class jobs for Canadians, not just for today, but for decades and generations to come. The world is paying attention to the supply chains that Canada has to offer, the critical minerals, but also and mostly the incredible caliber and quality and reliability of Canadian workers who are hardworking, innovative, ambitious, well-educated, positive, optimistic, and excited about what the future brings. So we will continue to ensure that we're bringing in great jobs for Canadians right across the country, and that work is ongoing.
Following up.
Ça fait plusieurs années qu'on arrive et qu'on annonce des investissements majeurs dans des emplois pour les Canadiens par des investisseurs étrangers, que ce soit ici en Ontario pour les chaînes d'approvisionnement et les batteries pour les voitures électriques, que ce soit au Québec, à Sorel, à Bécancour, ailleurs. On est en train de développer des bons emplois, pas juste pour maintenant, mais pour des générations à venir, en attirant des investissements. On va continuer de le faire comme on le fait avec Stellantis. Les négociations se poursuivent, mais je suis optimiste.
Thank you, Prime Minister. I didn't really get an answer to that question. So has the government presented a deal to Stellantis? Could you tell us how much money is in it for Stellantis? And are you worried that this sets up a new precedent, this deal and the VW deal, billions of dollars of taxpayer money going to these companies? They're not Canadian companies. Can the government continue to afford the new cost of doing business?
Well, obviously, conversations are ongoing with Stellantis, so I won't get into details, but we will continue to make sure we're getting the right deals for Canadians that create great jobs for the future in growing industries that are going to support communities. And you bring up the Volkswagen investment, and that's an excellent example that, yes, we had to step up to match the investments and the IRA money that the United States have put on the table. But the investments we're making will return within 5 years of that plant's operation and create, most importantly, great jobs in St. Thomas and across Southern Ontario for decades and generations. We all remembered what happened when, under the previous Conservative government, a major auto company left St. Thomas. It's not just the plant that closes. It's small businesses that shut down, people who leave town, Little League and hockey teams don't get the local corporate funding and support. It hollows out communities. And in this time of change and, quite frankly, anxiety around the world, there's a lot of reasons that people can look at to be worried and to be anxious about their futures. But when we secure investments like this that are larger than just a single plant, that demonstrate a commitment to creating great jobs right across this country for decades to come in economies and in technologies that are going to be incredibly important for the future, that flies straight in the face of those who say that Canada is broken, those who, like the Conservative leader, won't even support the Volkswagen investment and won't support Canadian workers to be part of the net zero future the world needs.
Next question. Oh.
Nous avons démontré que nous sommes toujours là pour appuyer les emplois des Canadiens, pas juste maintenant, mais dans l'avenir aussi. Quand une compagnie comme Volkswagen vient investir, ils démontrent qu'ils ont confiance dans les travailleurs, pas juste pour maintenant, mais pour des générations à venir. Et c'est quelque chose que, malheureusement, le Parti conservateur, particulièrement Pierre Poilievre, refuse d'accepter ou de comprendre. Que des investissements comme ça, pour appuyer nos travailleurs, pour créer un avenir prospère dans un monde qui est en train de se transformer vers la carboneutralité, c'est comme ça qu'on bâtit une économie forte et des bons emplois pour des générations futures de Canadiens.
Next question.
Marta Kosik from Polish television. Did you talk about security of nation of NATO, and will Canada and Poland have plans to cooperate in the defense and military sector?
Canada and Poland are good friends who are already cooperating as strong NATO allies in the enhanced forward presence that we have where we're both operating in Latvia. We continue to stand as two of the strongest voices around the NATO table on the need to ensure that Ukraine continues to get all the support it needs, because both Poland and Canada understand deeply that ensuring that Russia does not succeed in redrawing the map in Ukraine, in taking away their sovereignty and their territorial integrity and their right to choose what the future holds for Ukrainians by Ukrainians. This is something that doesn't just matter there, but matters everywhere around the world. And standing up for our values and our strengths is something that Canada and Poland will continue to do.
I agree with Justin.
Following up.
Hi.
C'est qui le next, Stacy?
Okay.
Prochaine question.
Okay. Grzegorz Urbanek, TV Polsat. I have a question to both prime ministers. And I'd like to ask you about what are your expectations before the NATO summit in Vilnius? What do you think will be the main goal, the main point of this summit? Thank you.
Well, I think, first of all, the main goal needs to continue to be, as it was last year in Spain, NATO unity. Unity and steadfastness across the alliance and across our partner countries around the world. We are unequivocal in standing firm for the fact that no one, not Russia, not any other country that happens to have a larger military than its neighbor, should be allowed to redraw lines on the map, should be allowed to succeed from invading a peaceful neighbor, because the consequences of that would go far beyond just Eastern Europe. They'd spread to Africa, to Asia, to South America, and to all of our countries, where suddenly might make right again. So the focus at NATO is going to be continuing to stand strong and unequivocally for those values that pull us together, the rule of law, the international rules-based order, and ensuring that Russia does not profit from its illegal invasion of a peaceful neighbor.
Well, like Poland is advocating for relatively quick accession of Ukraine to NATO. But we understand that not all the member states of NATO are in agreement with this. This is why we would want to discuss this, how to present a reliable and viable and credible path for Ukraine to NATO. That's first. And before that happens, Ukraine would need to get some security guarantees because Ukraine is fighting for not only its own sovereignty and territorial integrity, but also for the stability of the entire Europe and peace in the entire Europe. Can you imagine the world where bigger neighbors can so easily attack and, as Justin has just said, draw new lines on the map? This would be a terrible, terrible world. So Ukrainians are really giving their lives for the better world. And this is why they deserve having very strong security guarantees. And I hope this also be a major topic of the next NATO summit in Vilnius.
Next Canadian question. Laura Stone from the Globe and Mail.
Hi, good afternoon. Prime Minister, the government of Poland has passed laws allowing regional governments to declare LGBT-free zones and is ranked among the worst in Europe for LGBTQ rights. You've criticized the Italian Prime Minister on similar issues. Why are you silent on Poland's record? And if the Polish Prime Minister wants to weigh in on his government's record as well, thank you.
As is always the practice for Canadian governments, for my government, we bring up human rights concerns with friends, allies, and challenging partners around the world. And as friends, Canada and Poland will always have frank conversations on the things we're doing together and places where we raise concerns. I certainly raised concerns that we have around some of the reports coming out of Poland around LGBT rights, around democracy. And we had a frank conversation, as must be the case. We will continue to work together on a broad range of things, but we will continue to be there to stand up for the values that matter as well. Voilà, okay. Comme est toujours le cas dans nos échanges francs avec nos amis et avec nos alliés, on souligne nos préoccupations. Et j'ai souligné mes préoccupations par rapport au reportage sur la condition des personnes LGBT et des préoccupations au niveau de la démocratie avec le Premier ministre. Et nous allons continuer de souligner ces préoccupations. On a eu une bonne conversation franche là-dessus, comme on doit toujours le faire. Mais on va aussi toujours travailler ensemble avec nos alliés sur les grands enjeux et les valeurs qui nous unissent.
In Poland, rights of all the human rights and rights of LGBT people are not jeopardized at all. We very strongly put focus on nurturing families, supporting families, and sometimes it is misunderstood by some people as being discriminatory towards some other people, which is not the case. And the best proof of this is that we do not have issues with the European Commission from this point of view, because the normal so-called cohesion fund and other European funds would not be would not be granted for Poland had we experienced any issues from that point of view. Though that's the best proof of this. But on top of this, I can assure you there are no problems whatsoever. There are lots of misunderstanding, I reckon, and I can explain them even more in details. But this is not an issue in Poland.
Prime Minister, David Johnston has lost the confidence of the House. Leger poll says only 27% of Canadians have confidence in him. Can you continue to ignore calls to replace him?
David Johnston is an extraordinary and eminent Canadian who has served his country for decades in a range of capacities, including being appointed by previous Conservative Prime Minister Harper to extremely sensitive and important positions, including that of being Governor General of Canada. He is taking very seriously this question, and he is digging into the facts. What is unfortunate is that the leaders of both the Conservatives and the Bloc Québécois have refused to let facts get in the way of the political arguments and personal attacks that they're making. They have refused to get security briefings on the actual facts surrounding the intelligence and the question of foreign interference, because they want to continue to smear a man of unimpeachable integrity and deep commitment and service to Canada. He will continue his work in sharing with Canadians the concerns and the solutions around foreign interference. And I look forward to him holding public hearings across the country over the coming months to include Canadians in this important conversation in a way that is grounded in facts. This is a serious issue. Unfortunately, the leader of the opposition is not choosing to take it seriously. He's choosing instead to fling mud and make personal attacks. That's not responsible leadership.
En français?
L'ancien gouverneur général David Johnston est un homme d'intégrité qui a servi son pays depuis des décennies, incluant en étant nommé par l'ancien premier ministre conservateur Stephen Harper à des postes extrêmement sensibles comme gouverneur général du Canada. Il va continuer son travail, mais ancré dans la réalité, ancré dans les faits, pour rebâtir la confiance des Canadiens dans nos systèmes de sécurité et dans notre travail contre l'ingérence étrangère. Mais ce qui est désolant dans tout ça, c'est de voir le chef conservateur et le chef du Bloc refuser d'accepter et d'apprendre les faits sur cet enjeu sérieux qu'est l'ingérence étrangère. Ils ont refusé des briefings pour les mettre au courant et mettre à jour sur nos agences de renseignement et de sécurité et le travail qu'ils font, parce qu'ils préfèrent pouvoir attaquer sans aucun fondement l'intégrité de façon personnelle l'ancien gouverneur général. c'est pas du leadership responsable, c'est pas de prendre au sérieux un enjeu qui est fondamental pour le bien-être des Canadiens et de nos institutions. Et j'appelle encore une fois au chef de l'opposition de prendre cet enjeu au sérieux comme il le mérite.
Thank you, Prime Minister. This is what concludes today's press conference. Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you.